Hi, I'm Rusty Komori, and this is Beyond the Lines on ThinkTech Hawaii. I was the head coach of the Punahou boys varsity tennis team for 22 years, and we were fortunate to win 22 consecutive state championships. My books, Beyond the Lines and Beyond the Game, are about leadership, character, and creating a superior culture of excellence, which is what this show is all about. My special guest today won the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks, and he's the author of the very popular book, Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. He is the one and only Michael Bennett, and today we are going beyond football. Hey, Michael, welcome to Beyond the Lines.
Well, thank you, Rusty. It's always nice to see you, man. Outside the tennis court. I was just laughing because last week, man, you had me needing extra electrolytes. I was really tired out there, man. So.
Well, you're my tennis protege now, Michael, and I'm so proud of you. I mean, you're going to be a champion in tennis like you were in football. I believe that.
Oh, I just love tennis, man. I love the thinking part of it, like how much you have to think, the part of how much you have to be able to make your brain, attached to the way that you move, the constant preparation for every single hit. I think it's just like this analogy for life with tennis, how tennis is. I also think like growing up, you look at tennis players and you're like, oh, is this not then it's not the toughest sport? And then it's like, now I'm playing tennis. I'm like, wow, this is really one of the toughest sports to be able to play for hours upon hours and constantly do the right hits, to constantly be focused on the game, staying true to the hits. It's a hard concept to be able to constantly do that. And in the sun, doesn't matter the terrain, grass, clay, hard court. It's a lot of different variables in tennis that you have to be able to to just be able to play and look at the wind. So I just love tennis. It's a great retirement sport for me. I love going out there weekly and getting better and better.
Well, Michael, we're going to talk more about tennis on the show as well. And I want to ask you, first of all, Michael, you graduated from Texas A&M. You were undrafted, and then you became one of the greatest defensive ends in the NFL. Why did you succeed on the NFL?
Well, I think I've really just about grit. I think it's just people just constantly doubting you and the ability just to want to win. I think it was really focused on me really digging deep into myself and really thinking like I only got one chance at this, and how do I want my legacy to be? What am I willing to do and sacrifice to be at the top of the game? And I think that takes a lot of uh, intestinal fortitude to go out there and do those things, especially when you're undrafted. It's really hard to play, and to know that like, hey, like I'm undrafted, I'm not going to get as many shots as everybody else. But in some ways, not getting as many shots as everybody else makes you appreciate the shots that you do have, but the appreciation of knowing what it feels like for nobody to want your autograph, the appreciation of feeling like the coach doesn't call your name, you're never getting into the game, but to take all that and wrap that up and package that into something that boosts your confidence is a tricky thing to do. But I was able to do it because I love the game of football. I've always been a historian of it, and I just knew what football can do on the platform of what football can do, and also what it feels like to be great at something like that. So I think it's just having that grit. I think growing up in the situations that I grew up in as a kid, and always feeling like I was always at the bottom, and always feeling like seeing your mom work hard, seeing your sister struggle, seeing your whole family struggle, and being like these, you know, what they're going through every single day, and the ability to constantly perform no matter the stress to provide for your family was something that I took from them, and a skill. And I think that skill allowed me to have a better career in the NFL.
No, that's really good to hear those insights. And when you won the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks, why was that team such a special team?
I think it was the bond. I think there's a relationship in sports that people don't think about, the correlation between family and how that connects with sports. But I think a lot of times when you're able to build a team and you feel the other person's emotions when they're experiencing something in life, for me, um, when you get so close to people and when their family, something, when they're married, when death happens, all these different things, build up this bond. But it was this bond that was unbroken, that we trusted each other so much, that we believed in each other so much, that it drove us. And I think that was what made that team special because when money's involved and championship and fans, it usually brings ego. But I think we were able to have humility and be able to understand that our greatest asset is each other. Our greatest asset is our ability to be connected. Our greatest asset is to love each other and care for each other in every single moment on and off the field. And it created such a great bond that even now that we're retired, we all still are very connected.
No, I love hearing that. And that, I mean, you guys had such a great team. I mean, on offense, defense, and special teams. And yeah, I mean, you could see how deep the bond was with you guys. And Michael, I want to ask you, I mean, you've been among great players and champions. Why do champions become champions?
Ooh, come on, Rusty. Why you gotta have this question? I don't know why champions become champions. I think it starts with dedication. I think it's the ability to be dedicated to something so deeply, regardless the amount that you have to sacrifice. I think it's, you know, in the Bible, they talk about perseverance is where you reach righteousness, and I think that's a lot of where a lot of champions become is that they persevere through a lot, so they can have that righteous moment where they feel like it's gratification for everything that they experienced in their life. And I think that's where champions are built is through the tough times that nobody ever sees, the sacrifices, the amount of things that people go through to get to that, the amount of injuries that they play through, the amount of the sacrifice for the least amount of time that you spend with your family. I think that's where championship champions are made is through those moments. I think people love to see the glorification when you win, but people don't like to see the grittiness of getting up early in the morning, having broken toenails or broken thumbs or fingers or feelings that like those are the things that people overlook sometimes. But that's because people skip the process. People are in love with the end part. But I try to tell all the young people to be in love with the process because the process is where you find your love of the sport. And that's for me, I feel like that's where champions are made. You have to love going into the gym. You have to love the sacrifice. You have to love the pain of the sport. And that's where you get the glorification of everything that you really want from it.
No, I love that you said that, Michael, because it's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes when nobody's watching. I mean, that's really what you said. That's what makes champions. I mean, it's the grind and yeah, really enjoying the process is a huge part of success. And Michael, I'm so proud of you. You retired from the NFL, and I started you in tennis in October, just this past October, and you are making incredible progress with tennis. I mean, you have to be one of the top two, three adults that I've had over all of these years that have been getting so good in such a short period of time because you absorb everything. I mean, you have such a great mindset. And like you were saying earlier about things that you like about tennis, what are you learning about yourself about tennis right now?
I think of what for me, what tennis has done for me and where I'm at in my life. I think there's a part of yourself that you want to stay comfortable with things that you already been a part of. Like I want to play basketball because I always play basketball. I want to play this because I'm comfortable with that. And I think in this part of my life, it's about being uncomfortable in certain parts of my life so I can have growth. And I think what tennis allows me to do is to grow and being repetitive at something, having consistency at something, having the ability to have humility when I don't understand something to really break myself down. Like because I feel like when you achieve so much in life, you sometimes there's a barrier that you were like, I've reached my growth points, I reached my potential. But I'm only 35. Like how could I ever stop learning? My grandpa used to say, you can learn something from a baby. And I think that's true. I think in tennis for me, it has done that for me is fulfilled the ability to be able to still be competitive, but in a competitive in a way that requires me to think, that requires me to prepare, requires me to have strategy. And I think this part of my life, that's the whole point of this part. Next part of my sector in life is to have strategy, to think, to really, prepare, to really humble myself. And I think that's really where I'm at in life, in every factor of life, and everything that I'm doing now is about pivoting from one part of life to take on another part of it and really have an understanding and use the people in my surroundings as people who can help me grow. And I think that's why I love tennis so much is because it's really pushed me in so many different ways. it's like I don't know everything, and I think that's what we fall out of love with sometimes is the moment that we think we know everything and we stop knowing it. It's like, oh man, I don't know this. I'm scared. My thing is, hey, is anybody that's watching this, if you want to do something, don't be scared of the part that you don't know, of the unknown. You know, the greatest parts of chapters of life are in the unknown. And I think that's where we are right now. It's like, hey, just go out there, try these different things. You know, there's something in life that you always wanted to do, but you're scared to do it. Go try it. You know, it was my wife who pushed me, like, hey, go out there and play tennis. I was like, I don't know. Rusty's such a good coach. He's going to be looking at me funny when I can't do it. But it's like, you never know how somebody's going to coach you and the patience that they have for you. And I think what I enjoy with having been coached by you is the patience, the ability to, you know, to say, hey, Michael, it ain't about when you hit the good shot. It's about when you hit the bad shot, then you have to get back up to hit the greater shot. And I think that's what makes me keep going thinking about life is how many times am I going to be knocked down in the next part of my life? And how many times am I willing to get back up and really enjoy, like, enjoy getting the part of getting back up from falling down. And so that's what I love about tennis. And, the more I dig deeper into it and I start to study better and I start to study all these people, the ability to stay consistent a long period of times and drives is where I love about the sport.
Yeah, so I know you have big respect for Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic now, and yeah, and you like you just said, you're studying them. What are you noticing about them now that you know how it feels like to play tennis?
I think it's the mindset. I think when I look at Djokovic or Tsitsipas or Nadal or Federer, it's the mindset, like the ability to doesn't matter the terrain, the wind, but they always keep going. And Federer's ability to stay persistent on every single shot is him. It's the technique that he follows every single time. The velocity and the tenacity of Nadal is what I love, and just the art of it. And I love watching them and seeing how they set up their shots, the ability to keep running everything down. And Djokovic, his ability to just outwit opponents and just outshot them and just keep going and just keep getting everything back. And I always say, I want to be like Djokovic. I just want to be a wall. He just gets everything back. So I don't know. I love that part about tennis.
Well, Michael, I absolutely look forward to all of our training sessions together because you always give me 1000% effort with 1000% focus. And I absolutely love it. And another thing that I love, Michael, is your book. I love your book, Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. What compelled you to write that book?
I think for me, what really compelled me to write that book is um, what I saw going on in America at that time, before George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, but back with Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, when there was a lot of police violence and just a lot of racial tension around America. And growing up in the South and seeing a lot of racial tension and looking at America and being like, at what point do we as individuals become comfortable with what was happening in society? And this book is about, being uncomfortable when you see violence, being uncomfortable when you see what's happening to our fellow human being. I think this book is really was about humanity. It's about the humanity that we all possess and how focusing on the human part of it allows us to care more. It allows us to have more empathy, but being honest and having a true reflection of what of America's experience over the centuries of the traumatic past that we've seen for people of color in this country. And I think on this book was about my recollection of the sport, of how sports plays a key role into society, but also how sport can help change society. When we talk about protest, we talk about changing history. We talk about the work of Muhammad Ali and how that his shots and what he did when he was growing up and how that changed the Jackie Robinson, the integration of people seeing how sports could be integrated and how it's still fair for how we can still live like that. And I think for me, this book is a deep uh, it's a deep reflection of America, right? And I think America has this traumatic past, and I think the traumatic past we think these wounds are physical wounds, but a lot of these wounds are spiritual wounds, and sometimes spiritual wounds take time and time to really mend them. But it take the physical, it's really the spiritual that we all have to be connected spiritually to really mend those wounds. And I think a lot of times when we really look at the reflection of what we are, sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror because what you say you are isn't always what you look at in the mirror. And I think America has to reflect on its past and reflect on where we're going and really take time to really dig into our local communities and find how we can change them, how we can work together, how we can structure a better America, how can we do these things. And I think it takes a lot of time, but the book is the importance of taking, not to want to um, try to say I lived that experience as somebody else's experience, but having an intersectional thought to know that every problem around the world is connected in some type of way, and how what women experience is not only the part of women to say what's happening to them. It's a part of the place that men have the place to listen to what women are experiencing, but amplify it and stand by them. And even though it might require us to lose some of our own things, but it requires us to really have empathy for everybody else's experiences and really bring truth to light and share that light and make sure that we're able to stand tall and focus on helping others. And I think that's where this book kind of lives.
Well said, Michael. I want everyone to read your book. And Michael, I want to ask you, reflecting on your life so far, what is your purpose in life?
Ooh, Rusty, you always got these spiritual questions. I mean, I'm really still figuring that out, what my purpose in life. I think, like I said, I think it's a lot easier to go just do the NFL thing and like go coaching and do all those things. But right now, I'm really focused on place-based building, um, places where people can, be a part of things that people can see in communities and rebuild the communities from that. I'm really focused on that. I feel like that's my purpose. My purpose is to be able to use design and architecture to have a narrative that transforms our communities and doing that. And the more I study the past and looking at Booker T. Washington and looking at W. Du Bois and looking at the Black Reconstruction in America through this periods of time, and what do I see that's different from the time of Black Wall Street and looking into America's communities now, it's a reflection that there's a lack of Black architects, there's a lack of um, um, urban design of our communities. When we talk about parks, when we talk about libraries, when we talk about access to food, nutrition, gardens, farming. So I feel like my purpose now is to be in that space. I think there's protesting and doing all these different things, but then I think there's a time to articulate my message and to moving it into from 2D into 3D. 2Ds being on paper, but 3Ds being in living space that people can actually see these spaces and people can see that people matter. I think a lot of times we're really disconnected from our community, and I think my purpose is now to connect people and let people see how people can live. So I'm back in school studying and really digging deeper into that process and what is my medium and how can I, articulate my messages in a way that is profound, um, and in a way that makes people move, something that makes people feel spiritually, something that makes people feel that they matter. And I think my purpose is that now. I thought my purpose at one point in time, I felt that my medium was physical activity. It was me showing you an art through being on the football field, the ability to be able to spin, the ability to be able to pick another man up, to tackle another man. But now I feel like my medium and transforming that from being body is to being mind, and mind, and I'm saying mind and sound, but being mind is in like people can see the intellectual side that athletes have, the intellectual ability to be able to, change and pivot from one career but to pivot into another career. So my goal and purpose now basically is to be in design and be into architecture, be into building place space, build into urban design, being able to build communities.
I love hearing that, Michael. And you're making such a great impact in the community. And Michael, I had you on my show 2 years ago. I had one book at that time, and now having you back on for the second time, now I have two books. And I feel so grateful that you are a big supporter of the book. I mean, you did a book donation to the students and staff at Palama Settlement. What is it about the books that you like?
Well, I love the thing I love about the books. I think sometimes in underserved communities, people don't realize that the reading rates are really low, and that a lot of prison systems judge people off the fourth grade reading level. And so to be able to put books into the community that push them intellectually and um, pushes them to think in a way that's profound, but also pushes them to have philosophies and principles for themselves on things that they've seen people who actually win, and somebody who's local in their community who's done it for a extended period of time. So going through those stories of how success happened and how it doesn't matter where they are and the circumstances that you know through grit and through preparation and through these type of philosophies that they can succeed. I think those are important things to give to them, right? Because a lot of times in these communities they know that that they where they look the outlook isn't good, and there's just all these different things that can show them that there's a trauma that they can never overcome. But through your book it shows them that there's a brighter light, and I think by showing them there's a brighter light we're actually putting stronger people back into society and stronger individuals who understand that there's a philosophy that they can follow and a success that they can have and how they could be a part of this community. Right now, you look behind my back and it's this painting, and it's about Jasper Wong. And Jasper Wong is one of the main people who understands the importance of building community through art, through design, through all these different things. And in this book is the importance of how we communicate with our communities and how we bring people together is how we better our situation. I think in humanity, a lot of creativity came from survival. The ability to survive is where creativity came. And we're in a critical moment in our life where everybody's trying to survive. What more, what better time is it to have more design and have more architecture, have more ability to be connected? And in this book, it teaches us about philosophies and how we could be a better human being, how we could be, you know, how we can do more for our communities through our own philosophy. I think it's really important for young people to kind of figure out who they are. We spend a lot of time knowing who Kim Kardashian is, knowing who Kanye West is, but we don't know who we are. I think what like Socrates says is like the the true knowledge comes when we know nothing, and I think that's important because a lot of us realize that we think we know a lot, but we really know a little, and I think it takes us a lot of time to really look deep into ourselves and find out who we are as an individual. Allows us to really shine a light on humanity and shine a light on society.
I love hearing your insights there, Michael, because we're trying to make an impact, and for me, I really want to raise the standard of excellence in society, through the books, and I really appreciate you helping. And Michael, a lot of it is leadership as well. I want to ask you about Tom Brady. You played against him, but you also played with him. What makes Tom Brady successful?
I think what makes Tom Brady successful is his ability to have that beacon of light that people can come to, and I think people trust him. I think a lot of times people that are successful, people can't come to them. They can't be able to rely on them. They can't be able to connect to them. And I think sometimes leaders they reach so much success that they forgot what it's like to be the small person, the person who started the small company, the person who was bringing in the donuts. And I think what Tom Brady does a good job of is never really buying into the hype, really staying really humble and having a lot of humility and understanding that everybody has value. It may not be the value of being Tom Brady, but it's the value that you're the janitor, you do this, you're the quarterback, but everybody's job has a value. I think him and Russell Wilson, um, you know, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, those guys, are are one of a kind people who really understand what it's like to start from the bottom. And I think, sometimes the great leadership roles in a lot of companies, people start at the bottom. They started as the person bringing in the donuts, and they eventually be the CEO. And I think when I talk about these guys, that's how they came in the league. None of them was first round picks. They had to earn every single thing that they got. And they became the success through hard work, through dedication, through sacrifice, through perseverance, and understanding that one day they can be on the bottom and they understand what it feels like to be on the bottom. So they always treat people the way that they wanted to be treated when they were at the bottom.
Yeah, no, you're so right about that, Michael. And I like hearing what you said there about, just those insights. And I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up, Michael. What advice do you have for athletes to prepare them for life after football or after basketball or any other sport that they're in?
Yeah, I think I think as an athlete, there's a part of us that's an adult and a part of us that feels like a child. And I think the the adult part is that we are great at our bodies match our abilities on the field. But a lot of times we don't put that same ability into growing our minds and to find the intellectual spaces that we feel strong in, to really getting to know who we are as individuals and knowing where we can make an impact on life. I just tell every athlete to get to know themselves. Know thyself. I think knowing thyself will allow you to be stronger in your belief system, will allow you to have a philosophy, and it'll allow you to stand for something in moments when nobody else is willing to stand or kneel in Kaepernick's place or whatever your situation is, but being able to have that strength. And I think we spend more time knowing, reading, get to know what we are, how we can be, what our impact is, not just having such a connection to the sport that when that connection is gone, what are we left with? We're left with a shadow of ourselves. And if we don't want to be left with a shadow of ourselves, allow sports to just be a foundation that is a small brick into the real temple that we're really building. And I think that's where, the knowledge can come for athletes in the future, is to get to know ourselves. Spend more time reading, spend more time going out, experiencing parts of life that you don't get to know. And that way, when you finish, you'll be a stronger individual. You won't have so much of your identity tied up into sport. Your identity will be tied into who you really are, not the person who caught the ball, not the person who dunked the ball, not the person who had the best serve, but the Michael Bennett who loves community, the Michael Bennett who loves his family, the Michael Bennett who loves helping. I think that is what it's about. It's about being a citizen of humanity. And I think that's where it comes down for all the athletes of the future, is really focusing on that part.
I love that, Michael. I love hearing your philosophies, and I want more Michael Bennett's in the world. And I want to thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rusty. I really appreciate the opportunity to share and just to have great conversation. I think the world needs a lot of more great conversation. I think it's okay to disagree respectfully. I think it's important for us to see how others live. It's important for us to understand um, understand other people's philosophy, understanding their culture, understanding their race, understanding their gender, so we can grow as a humanity. So that's why I like having these conversations. It allows me to have these conversations with you and the rest of Hawaii.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you for watching Beyond the Lines on ThinkTech Hawaii. For more information, please visit rustykomori.com. And my books are available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And get Michael's book too. I hope that Michael and I will inspire you to create your own superior culture of excellence and to find your greatness and help others find theirs. Aloha.